Today's whole topic is how B2B healthcare, one of the most highly regulated industries that, we can think of, up there with fintech, how B2B healthcare is using UGC without all the red tape. By the end of today, you're going to leave with a practical way to classify what you can publish fast versus what needs a little more fine tuning, the green lane, the red lane, and that gray middle area. You're going to walk away with a repeatable system for building a claims matrix or an approval system, or really the guardrails you need to launch content without all the red tape. And we'll even leave you with a 7-day pilot plan so you can experiment with this, even if you're not in healthcare. And I want to draw attention to the chat. Check this out, right? We've got engineering, insurance, ed tech, education here in chat. This is great, right? I love that we have multiple industries here listening along live to learn from what healthcare is doing well. GovTech, wow, that's a big one. Talk about highly regulated, right? That's got to be up there in the top 3 too. So here's the core vision for today, all right? Highly regulated industries and highly regulated teams are not anti-content, right? Let's give some grace here. It's not that anyone that works in compliance hates marketing or something, right? It's that there are layers to these industries that are anti-risk. Understandably, they are risk averse. So if you're a marketer out there and you are looking to decentralize your content strategy, your job isn't to just eliminate risk. That's not possible. It's to right size your risk. It's to right size and develop the communication and relationship needed with compliance and legal and anyone else that is putting up that red tape to right size what can be pushed through easily that feels like people-powered, decentralized UGC, and what needs a little bit more polishing and fine-tuning. Now, different orgs have different tolerance levels, right? Some orgs are maybe a little smaller, more under the radar. So maybe there's more gray area. There's faster iteration. There's a little bit more experimentation. Then there's the behemoths of industry, right? They're very much on the radar. Maybe there's a lot of internal pressures, new funders coming on board, maybe a new partnership that's at stake. High scrutiny, high risk, aka tight controls, very black and white rules, right? I'm sure you guys fit into one of those lanes. Either way, though, doesn't matter if you're the small, off the radar, garage startup, or if you're, one of the top 3 insurance providers in the United States. The play is the same. You need to define lanes of content execution. And then you need to standardize that execution. And the only way to do that is if you bring the right people to the table so that the red tape's understood and so that you can whip out those scissors and cut right through it. So let's jump in, folks. I want to introduce our 2 panelists for today. First up, we've got Mr. Shannon Cummings. Shannon Cummings is a pro B2B healthcare marketer. He's got years of experience launching user-generated content and just general marketing strategies across the healthcare space. Shannon, so great to have you on today. Why don't you give the people here just a brief elevator pitch summary on some of your background?
Yeah, good morning, Daniel, and good morning to everybody out there coming to you live from just outside of Memphis, Tennessee, a very dreary Memphis, Tennessee today. Nonetheless, yeah, Daniel, I've been in orthopedics for 30 years, believe it or not. I started in ortho when I was 18 years old, and this is pretty much all I've ever done. So I've been in this highly regulated world since I was a kid, essentially. For the last 20 years, I've been in marketing, specifically on foot and ankle medical devices. So all the stuff you don't want in your body, like plates and screws and total ankles and nails, that's my business.
I love it. And look, that means that you've been in the weeds with some of the testier and more risky, marketing strategies out there, trying to get med tech devices and their impact on patients and on healthcare outcomes out into the market. but doing so the right way without putting anyone, especially you or your company, at risk, right? And that's the experience that we're really excited to pull from today. So thank you for being here. We're also joined by the one, the only Mr. David Kemp, host of Highway to Health here in the MarketScale ecosystem, director of growth at MarketScale, and our healthcare UGC pro here within the four walls. David, what's up, man?
What's up, everybody? Man, it's an honor to be here with this group. Today's gonna be great. We have organizations, marketers joining us from all over, and these are the challenges that they deal with every day. They have a vision, they have a great strategy, and we want to help them understand how that can come to life. Playing within the rules, but getting what we need to be successful. Shannon, thank you for being here, man, and appreciate your expertise, your experience, and sharing that with the awesome MarketScale community.
Happy to do it.
Oh, yeah. All right, so let's start with a quick question to chat as we dive into the meat and potatoes of today's webinar. Chat, I brought this up earlier, right? But there's a few lanes here that I'd say define kind of the culture of content output, right? You've got green lane companies. These are companies that are pushing out content quick, smooth, very iterative, not a lot of friction. Then you got the red lane companies, okay? If you're in the red lane, that means that legal and compliance are putting up a lot of blockers, and you struggle to get anything out there that isn't a multi-layer approved infographic. Then there's the gray area. A lot of nuance, a lot of project to project decision making. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You get some content out, but there's not a lot of standardization. I'd love to hear from you guys. Where would you consider your work in the marketing world day to day to land lane-wise? You a green lane, gray lane, or red lane marketer right now? Toss that in chat and we'll start to cook here in a minute. Okay, so let's dive in. I'm going to go and pull up my presentation here. Actually, first thing, I want to remind everyone, because you guys are chatting in chat, you guys get some free swag. Now, remember, I'm doing limited drop swag on UGC Workshop Live. Only the people that join the workshop get this, okay? I'm trying to have a little fun with this. So you guys are getting this tee this time, okay? I'm trying to be a little more goofy with this stuff, all right? We're embracing the meme culture here, but if you survived compliance red tape, you deserve the 1,000-yard stare meme t-shirt to wear. And everyone's going to be like, what the heck am I looking at? Too cute, too good. We all love a sweet cat. And we all love to be in on the joke. So everyone that's commenting in chat here today, I will follow up with that access link. Get your tee, lock it in, and rock that swag. Okay, now let's actually jump to the real stuff, okay? So shipping B2B healthcare UGC without the red tape. So green, gray, red classification. We're going to dive into this. We're going to dive into how to build an approval system that works for you. Okay, that could look like a claims matrix. It could look like, it could look like a process map. It could look like content templates. A lot of different approaches here. Then we're also going to give you a 7-day pilot to ship some of your first 5 clips a little more safely with the right people at the table. Okay, so again, red tape is not the enemy here. It's that there aren't clear rules. Again, we all like to rag on red tape or someone telling us you can't do it, you can't post that. But, I'm reminded of that lyric in classic Gaudier track, Somebody That I Used to Know. You can be addicted to a certain kind of sadness. That's the vibe here, okay? You can be addicted to a certain kind of red tape. It's actually sometimes easier to just say, screw it, legal's never going to approve this, so I'm not even going to bother. But that's why I kind of want to start by saying, guys, it's not necessarily that red tape is this inescapable, mummy that's just wrapping you up and there's no way you can push UGC out. It's that the rules aren't right. So we need to build the relationships, we need to build the rules and the repeatability that helps UGC ship. Now, I want to start here, Shannon. Could you just give us a little bit of insight, right? When you see this this main takeaway, this main theme for the show. Red tape isn't the enemy, unclear rules are. What comes to mind for you from your own experience, right? How does this resonate with what you've experienced trying to launch UGC in the various healthcare positions you've had?
Yeah, I've experienced a huge spectrum of regulatory environments in my career. Both, I was in a startup world. I've been in with mega companies. I've been in with mid-sized companies, and those risk profiles are very different. But what is constant and foundational before you can do any of this stuff, before you can go in and make sweeping changes, before you can get to a place that is reasonable for the business? Foundationally, you got to build a relationship with those people that are regulating what you say and what you do, right? And what that means is, I remember early in my career, associate product manager, it was, they were the enemy. They were the ones, the sales prevention group, right, is what we called it. And when you take that approach, you dehumanize people, right? They're not a person. They're the person that is holding me back. And so I think first and foremost, not to be too long-winded here, first and foremost, it's about building those relationships with those people at the human level, right? You should know that they have kids and what their kids' names are. You should understand where they're coming from. If they have some struggles in their life that they're willing to share, those are the kind of things that are absolutely, like I said, foundational before you can do anything else. So I think that's, the one constant.
And what's really important here is before we can even really tackle those relationships, it's important to know like what game you're playing in the first place, which is why I posed that question to chat. What content lane are you playing in? So let's get to that green, gray, red. I've been talking about it a lot, and I think this is a good way to start to help everyone make sense of their actual challenges, right? So when we look at defining content lanes, content that is risky isn't all made the same. And it's important to understand why content is even perceived as risky. In the healthcare field, content is risky because it could incur a lawsuit. It could bring the DOJ on your ass. You know what I mean? Like, that's a problem. And so, yes, it might be cool to get a patient on camera to share a selfie video, but is it really worth the headache? What's important is understanding those specific nodes of friction and then looking at your content plan. What is that content idea you had that lit a fire in you, but then that you put out yourself because you said legal is going to crush this, right? Where does that actually fall in a content lane? So you've got green content, the fast route. So this would be stuff that can make it through with lightweight review, right? Maybe these are already pre-approved claims that you have in other marketing material. Maybe these are safe formats that don't actually pose any risk. Think internal debriefs, right? Maybe your first creator crowd you activate are colleagues, little less risk there. Okay, then we'll jump over to the red side. System absolutely required. This might be content that's just straight up off limits. Okay, there probably is some UGC out there that you need to just accept is not going to happen immediately or maybe ever, but that doesn't mean all UGC has to be thrown out too. Just means why waste your time on something that your industry or your company is just not going to be able to bring to light right now. So that might be patient testimonials for some of y'all. Maybe not for some others. But anything that puts PHI risk at the forefront, for sure, for healthcare, right? Patient health information.
And Daniel, I think it's really, really important to point out that the company has to be aligned. Your organization has to be aligned to these categories and what items fall into those categories. So if you're thinking that something is green and your compliance person is thinking it's red, you got a real problem, right? You're gonna get yourself in big trouble. So you have to do the work to define these categories and then place those different types of media into those particular categories.
Exactly. I think that's huge. Like, we talk at MarketScale, oftentimes we talk about, getting the content out of the minds, the brains of the experts, the advocates. What we're talking about here today, this green, gray, red, that happens first. The definition of green at your organization, the definition of red at your organization is the pre-work. It comes from the relationship that Shannon shared, building a relationship with those other teams, not working in a silo, that helps you understand specifically for your organization what is green. And if that's defined when we do create, that's what might lead to a fast route, a fast track. And then also
Exactly.
being very clear that, hey, if this is defined as red, if this is in the red bucket, I'm not going to waste your time with it.
Right.
You'll have, you can trust me that what comes across your desk is going to live in the green or the gray.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to waste your time, because you've already shared that information with me. You've shared the guardrails, and I'm committed to working within that landscape.
As we get started with launching UGC in these highly regulated environments or red tape laden environments, we're going to give you all some tips too for what lane you should really be targeting to get started in. Now, the gray lane is probably going to be the bulk of your content because, yeah, in a highly regulated industry, things need review. But content that lives in the gray zone doesn't mean that it has to be this cumbersome ordeal to even get through. Approvals and review don't have to be full of friction. If everyone's on the same page, they can actually be pretty smooth. So we'll come back to this green, gray, red, right? And I saw here in chat, we've got, folks coming from all over the place, right? We've got folks who say most of their content's in red, mostly in gray, gray and red. We've got a few greens, which is exciting to hear. Alex said gred. I like that.
I love the gred.
Gred is good. Gray and red, just it's a lot of approvals and review and stuff probably still doesn't even make it out the door. So I feel your pain. But let's try to solve for that here today, okay? So the first big thing is we need to turn compliance into a co-designer of content. We need to build relationships with legal, with compliance, with whichever department matches in your industry that is usually putting up the red tape blockers because it's their job to, because they are the folks keeping the brand safe, right? So it's pretty standard here that you guys aren't going to be able to scale regulated UGC in this kind of regulated environment without that key relationship. So here are my top 3 tips for this. 1, you got to humanize that relationship early. Get to know these people, build real relationships, and identify what are the pain points in their day-to-day that drive them to nuke that piece of content that you really wanted to put out. I promise you, it's more often than not personal. It's not like that person is just itching to destroy your great marketing idea. So what's motivating their decision-making day to day? Start there, right? 2, bring them in early. This is not something to do after you've already put together your whole campaign and you say, thoughts? Because if they say, no, there's no way that's going to ship, well, now you've actually just, you've put a real damper on that relationship. Now they're a little mad that you put something unexpected on their radar. You're mad that all your hard work is thrown into the garbage. So bring them in early. You want to co-design those guardrails before you ever bring those channel partners or internal employees or patients, even physicians, right, onto your content. And then once you've got the relationship, once you bring them in early into this process, you can negotiate the boundaries. Define what's in, define what's out, define what needs review and what can be expedited. Define what's absolutely a no-go. And sometimes those no-goes change, right? But we need to play with the compliance ecosystem consistently so that we know how is the game changing in real time.
I think It's also very important here for your regulatory, your legal, your compliance people, whoever you're dealing with, to understand the end game, right? You can't
Yes.
expect them to say no, but we can do this unless they understand what the goal of the initiative actually is, or the product launch,
Right.
or the campaign, or whatever. So, good regulatory and compliance people, they say no, but let me help you work through this, right? The ones that are unreasonable just say no. But to get them to that reasonable point, they have to understand what the destination is. And that takes, as this says, taking them through that process, having them as part of the team, as opposed to just somebody that's a gatekeeper.
Folks listening along, dive into chat here and do the little do this that's on screen right now. Who is your compliance ally? You don't need to drop their, full name and social here, but at least just kind of throw out who is that person that you need to build a relationship with. It could be a specific role, it could be a department, it could be an individual that you already know. Hey, it's really important that I bring them to the table for future initiatives. So go ahead and throw that in chat. Who is that person that you need to build a compliance ally style relationship with to help you cut through your red tape? Stew on that a little bit and let's see what comes up in chat. Sales. Hey, very true. I like it. Well, hey, I like that. That's the first comment in chat. Luckily, we've got a sales guy here on the call too. David, let's hear from your end on this, right? I mean, you get to interface with a lot of healthcare companies from a lot of different corners of healthcare, from insurance to med tech to revenue management, right?
Yep.
How do you see this challenge differ a lot between these spaces? But maybe more importantly, how do you see this challenge actually have a lot of common ground, regardless of the nuances?
Yeah, the common ground with sales being the gatekeeper for marketing are relationships. Sales teams are, sales individuals are very protective of the relationships that they have with their prospects and with their customers. Usually because they've taken a long time and put in a lot of effort to build it. And oftentimes you're going to get the red tape when they're afraid that what you're asking of that prospect or that customer could jeopardize the relationship that they've built. So to Shannon's point, sharing the end goal with them, understanding that, if David's protective, if the sales guy is protective of me going to this customer, he needs to understand that this is going to be good for the customer. Some things that we do here and that our customers do is every time I go to a customer, it's not for a case study every time. It's not for a testimonial every time. I'm not going to ask that customer every time to be on a commercial. What I'd like to do sometimes is position that customer as an expert, a thought leader, somebody on the leading edge of their industry, and shining the light so brightly on that customer that it reflects back on, our organization. But working through and settling those concerns from the sales team, if you're trying to get in front of a customer, it's just know that it's 100% about the relationship, and positioning that opportunity as good for the relationship is the way that I'm more open to giving access to that company or that prospect or that customer. If you have trouble getting your salespeople to create content for you, it's kind of the same thing. It's got to be good for that salesperson. If it's mutually beneficial, if it's positioned that way and the end goal is with that in mind, those barriers start to break down a little bit.
Yeah. And what's interesting here is that when a department like sales is your blocker, you actually have a lot of win-win that you can develop, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of actual win-win realities to well-made, decentralized, people-powered content that sales will benefit from. But on the flip side, Shannon, to bring you back in, a regulatory or a compliance department, right? A lot of their win-wins is just like, I don't want any problems on our plate, right? That's the win-win, is keep risk away from the brand. So I'm curious on your front, from your experience, what are the win-win scenarios, the win-win nuggets that you have found work between a B2B healthcare marketer and someone on the compliance or the legal or the regulatory department?
Yeah, the win-wins are when those happen, it's always a negotiation, number one,
Yeah.
right? And so that's the way you should always approach these conversations. It's not me getting exactly what I want. It's me negotiating, me having a goal of doing everything I can to sell this product. That's my job, is to make sure I'm positioning, I'm messaging, I'm promoting this product to where my sales team can go out and maximize impact. Well, regulatory, they're motivated by keeping you out of risk. And so that conversation is not just someone dictating to the other. It is a negotiation. And when I have experienced those win-wins, it was, first of all, stating up front what the end goal is. This is what I want to say. This is why I want to say it. Help me, regulatory person, say it in a way that keeps me out of jail. That's when, I walk away with essentially what I want to say, and regulatory thinks that, well, and they have protected the company.
I like that negotiation angle here, right? Because negotiations end with both sides losing a little bit, but both sides end up coming to terms with what they've gained out of those negotiations, right? And when you have the right relationships, when you bring these people in early, when you set those guardrails clearly, these negotiations can happen more smoothly too. You're not starting from scratch when you are sitting legal down and saying, I want to put this piece out. What do I need to remove or what do I need to add to make sure we're all good?
Yeah.
Speaking of.
Yeah, the only thing I would add.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, sorry. The only thing I would add to that is you have a finite amount of chips you can play, right? So don't die on every hill. The things that are really, really important to your messaging, your positioning, you promoting that product, go to bat for that stuff. But identify the things that don't really matter and save your chips for the things that do.
It's a great point.
I love that one.
Hey, Shannon, I've got a question that might be on the minds of our listeners. What does this look like? Are you walking into the office, to the, compliance and regulatory person's office every time you have something, or is there a more consistent way to bring them in and be a part of the process, on a consistent basis? How have you done that? How have you integrated that person or that department into the normal cadence that you had with your marketing teams?
Yeah, really well put together marketing organizations have it as part of their defined marketing process, right? So when you're going out and you're getting VOC, you're starting to build claims matrix, you're starting to really understand what this product development looks like and what the end goal is. You're bringing your regulatory people in, and you don't get past, stage gate 1 or 2 until everybody goes, okay, we're signed off on it. That's a really well-oiled machine usually that does that. The smaller organizations may not have those defined processes. And so, in that case, it kind of depends, right? In some cases, I'm going to go in, I'm going to sit down with them. And like I said before, explain it all the way through. And then others, maybe it's a quick email that just says, hey, this is a low risk thing, but I want to give you just a heads up on it.
Now, speaking of claims matrix, I want to go ahead and jump to that because that's our next main how-to and tip here for you guys listening along. Okay? If you want to ensure that your efforts aren't wasted around your marketing campaigns, and if you want to make sure that user-generated content actually sticks and actually becomes a form of not only media, but also customer and community engagement that serves your brand, especially in a highly regulated industry, you want to create some guardrails. And one of those that is very familiar to those in healthcare, maybe not so much so in other industries, is a straight up claims matrix, right? If you are advertising a med tech product, there are some things you definitely want to say, things you want to claim around what that product can do, And there's probably a whole host of things that you don't ever want to say. If you say them, you're going to get in trouble, someone's going to get sued, and no one's going to be happy, right? There's also the middle ground there, why you can or can't say what you can or can't say, right? So how do you explain that across an organization succinctly? Well, in healthcare, they develop this with a literal document, a literal workflow, a literal like grid. Visualize this for your people, what you can and what you can't say, and in what context. If you have this laid out, especially for user-generated content, where you are asking an employee, a channel partner, a physician, a patient even, to weigh in on content, if everyone knows the guardrails, that whole process is going to move much more smoothly. So user-generated content does not have to be this blank canvas. And I think this is the self-imposed red tape that a lot of marketers, inadvertently kind of wrap themselves in. I can't do user-generated content because that means I have to take my hands off the wheel. And now I have all this chaos and all this risk of all these unapproved people weighing in on content. Well, not only does working with MarketScale, with MarketScale Studio, for example, give you those guardrails, helps you scale while decentralizing, but it's also just not true that UGC is inherently a blank canvas. Therefore, UGC is inherently risky. You can build templates. You can build the guardrails to unlock speed, to unlock better content, and to just make the whole experience more intentional for everyone involved. All right. So Shannon, I'd love more input from you here. This claim matrix, how beneficial has building something like this been for you to get compliance, legal, regulatory, right? Get everyone on the same page, at the same table, right? Tell us some experiences that you've had leveraging this kind of strategy to UGC success.
Yeah. In the process of developing a product, whatever that product is, this is skipped so many times. And the reason it's skipped is because it's a pain in the ass to do on the front end, right? It is a pain on the front end because you have to identify what exactly you want to say, the claims that you want to make, and then you got to substantiate them with real data. And that takes time. It takes a lot of effort on the organization. However, it's very much worth it on the back end, and how you have to look at that. And let me just explain what this is. It's very simple. Yeah. It's essentially 2 or 3 columns, right? It says in one column, it says, this is exactly what I want to claim. I want to say that I'm 30% stronger than my competitive product. And then in column B, it says, this is why I can say it, right? And it's substantiated with, fill in the blank, benchtop testing, studies that you've produced, pre-commercialization, those type of things. The reason that it's so important, and think about this, is because you have multiple partners within these regulatory bodies, right? So you can go today to Amy and she says, yeah, this is good. And then you can go to Betty tomorrow and she says, no, this is not good. Or you have turnover, right? All these things slow you down. So the things that you thought you could say today, that person leaves the organization and now you've got a new person coming in and they're throwing monkey wrenches everywhere. This is a definitive guide that can go from one person to the other. And when they say no, you can say, actually, let's pull up the claims matrix and let me tell you why I can say it, right?
Right.
And so it will speed on the back end, it will speed the way that you're able to move through, this UGC content and those approval processes very quickly. And if it's, when you get really mature, and you build trust with those organizations, especially on the user-generated side, then you can start giving some guidelines to your users and say, look, here are my guardrails. You can say any of these things. You got to stay out of this area. And then you don't have to route it anymore. But that takes time. It takes trust, but it also takes a definitive guide in order to do that.
And doing this is shifting the color spectrum, right? Doing this is helping you take more stuff out of red into gray and more stuff out of gray into green, right? So if we go back to our grid here, putting together a claims matrix, putting together the guardrails of what you can't say, what you can say, and why you can or can't say it, or when you can and can't say it, is helping you right-size your risk. So if you want to right-size your risk, if you want to better understand what's green, what's gray, what's red, do yourself the favor of mapping out some of the landmines, honestly, that are in your industry, and give your people that map. I also want to clarify, this doesn't mean you have to like peer into a crystal ball and imagine out in the future all of the ways someone could misrepresent what you say, or what are all the potential different versions of this claim that could introduce risk. You can't expect yourself or a compliance department to, fully anticipate that. But you can lay the right foundations that build a culture of understanding and a culture of right-sizing risk that is meant to enable decentralized content rather than stifle it, right? That's what's really most important here. Doing stuff like this, building a claims matrix, is not here to stifle anything. I think a lot of people see it as like, oh, if I put in all this effort around what I can and can't say, I'm like putting my content in a prison box. But no, you're actually freeing your content up to be able to move more confidently and to be able to let more people push stuff through without 10 layers of review. And that brings us to, I'm going to skip over that one. Yeah, we're going to go here. Match your process to this risk profile now, right? If you want to successfully bring compliance, legal, regulatory, whoever, sales, as we saw in chat, if you want to bring people that are putting red tape up in your industry and organization to the table, and you want to figure out the best way to get more people-powered, decentralized content out across your channels, then you want to build clear processes that are going to help everyone involved know what kind of content needs what kind of review. So if we split this into two tracks, right, you could see track A, this is going to be the higher risk content, but the process is more durable, right? It has more steps and redundancies on purpose because this is critical stuff we cannot mess up. So it's going to be used for the web page, for the main product page, for the sales materials that are make or break for representing your product. Of course, this needs a lot of back and forth. But then you've got the faster route, the lower risk route, which is more abbreviated. This can capture a broader horizon of content than maybe you're even realizing. You can have lower risk content move fast if it's for social clips, event hype, internal video, etc. This doesn't mean that there's going to be zero review, but rather that it's right-sized to the risk profile. And Shannon, I want to bring you in on this here, and David, hear from you as well as you communicate with customers on this. But the main way to even do this is to bring people to the table and say, where is the bloat? Where is the fat? How can we actually trim down the review process for the sake of everyone involved? Shannon, can you give us some examples of how you've seen this play out in your experience and why you see this as a useful tip and step for getting UGC out the door?
Yeah. So in my experience, what happens with these types of routing processes is over the years, I describe it as layers, right? You get a new regulatory person, a new regulatory lead person, and they come in and they add a new layer. Or you have a particular situation that arises that presents some risk to the company, and so we add a new layer. And so over, a 5-year time period, what you end up with is layer on top of layer of redundancy in these type of processes. And so, once every so often, you need to, as you said, Daniel, sit down with the organization and process map this and go through literally step by every single step, what it takes to get from point A to point Z. And a lot of manufacturing, if you're in the manufacturing industry in any way, a lot of manufacturers will have people that are really, really good at this that you can leverage, right? Those black belts that understand this stuff up and down. I can do it at a very rudimentary level, so I love leveraging those people. But bring them in, go through the entire process, and inevitably what happens, regardless of your position in the business, whether it be on the commercial side or the regulatory side, you start to see those redundancies and you start to see that fat. But it's got to be laid out on a whiteboard. It's got to be put into a form where you can actually see and experience. This is why it's taking a month to get a social post through our organization, is because we're treating it like it's in my case, a surgical technique that's going to live on the website, and it's got a much lower risk profile. And oh, by the way, that surgical technique routing process has about 10 layers of redundancy that we need to get out. So the only way to do it, at least in my experience, sit down with the organization, really, really, process map it, take your time. I've seen people break down and cry when they do this. It's not easy, but man, is it worth it?
I think we see that a lot, where it's almost like the evil we don't know. It almost feels like we're putting things into a black box and hoping it comes out the time that we want and with the approval that we want. What Shannon's sharing with us is a way to promote and drive some transparency across your organization. Understand what it looks like, trim the fat when needed, but also build trust for your side of the business too. To say, look, if I understand this, if it's clear to me what the rules are, then I can execute, and I'm not, and I can lighten the burden for your department also. But without this process, without this practice, both sides are kind of working in the dark, and we don't know what we're going to get, and we don't know what's going to come back. And so this is a huge piece. And like Shannon said, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some work. But with the way these large language models are demanding this kind of content, with the way our community, patients, customers, prospects, partners are engaging with this time, we have to do it. It's inevitable. And if your rules for your industry or your rules for your organization are more constrained than you'd like them to be, you got to understand them so that you can still execute. And the only way to understand it is to do this kind of work that Shannon's talking about.
I'd love to see in chat, folks, if you guys could weigh in with what your current review process looks like, right? Let's knowledge share a little bit. What does that look like? Do you typically have to do 30-day turnarounds for a social post, right? How many departments get involved? Who has to check your stuff? Hey, Matt Kelly says it takes minutes. That's huge. Matt, we're going to bring you on for a follow-up episode where you can tell us how you get stuff out the door so quick.
That's my man.
Let's go. Right? That's what I love to hear. But also, folks, yeah, let's knowledge share a little bit. What are the friction points you feel right now in your approval process? Let's see if maybe we can help tackle some of those together here on the workshop. But Shannon, I wanted to mention here too, I'm sure you've found too that like it's helpful for a regulatory or a compliance department to do this workflow as well. Because it's not like the compliance department is sitting there eager to go through a 30-day review cycle for a new brochure, right? That's not exciting. That's not sexy. It's not like they're like, yes, I get to destroy another piece of marketing content, So for everyone involved, it is useful to say, let's come to the table and find ways to cut the fat. Do we need that third step of review on that brochure? Really? Where can we build in trust earlier in the system to ensure that things look good on review number 1, right? What do you need from us, compliance department? And then compliance department, where do you feel like, gosh, I can't believe I'm having to review this again. I thought it felt good the last time, but blah, blah, blah. How do we cut that part out, right? Would you agree, Shannon? Like, have you found that going through this workflow has actually like help make the the general experience for the compliance department in reviewing marketing content more straightforward and streamlined as well.
I'll give you a good example of this. Previous company I worked for quite a long time, everything went through legal, right? So it went through quality, regulatory, compliance, and legal, and engineering. So we had this, and the process took literally months. And so as we process mapped, legal was in the room. We asked the question, what are you checking for? Like, you've got all these people checking for all these things. What exactly are you checking for? And the answer was, I'm looking for the circle R's and the TMs. That doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. If you forget a TM, right, you can do a running change on a document and fix it. No big deal. It's not going to get you sued. What we uncovered was that legal had all these documents, really, really highly paid lawyers sitting there looking at these things, making sure they had a TM and an R. And I raised my hand during this. I said, legal, we got it. Trust us. We're going to put R's and TMs on everything. We're going to double check it. Can we take you out of it? And it wasn't yes. It was, please God, yes, take me out of this process. I am so sick of doing this.
Yeah.
Like, we saved millions of dollars doing this because we took a really highly paid lawyer and took him off of this mundane stuff and put him on stuff that mattered to the organization.
I mean, yeah, cost savings on top of everything sounds great to me, Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. It's like just this process of facing the beast, this process of embracing, okay, I'm going to finally solve for this red tape mummy that is haunting my every waking moment, ends up leading to these cascading effects that make for a stronger, cohesion internally between legal and marketing, that make for opportunities to say, hey, if we remove that whole process, we're actually going to save like millions of dollars a year. Cool. Sounds great to me. Right. So there are a lot of domino effects to embracing UGC and saying, let's cut through red tape, ones that you may not even expect. I want to now dive over here to MarketScale Studio briefly, because just while we're reinforcing this idea of building workflows that help you move with intentionality, that help you put up the guardrails you need to ship stuff faster, when you have a platform like MarketScale Studio to help you with this, you can more easily convince someone like the main point of contact in a legal department. So for example, right, don't discount that you guys have access to things like brand books and saved orders, right? So let's pop open brand books here. In your brand books, you have the ability to fill out an entire brand ecosystem, including laying out things like tone, here, voice and tone, and legal and compliance. Screenshot this and send it to your legal team and say, hey guys, we're not just like opening up Pandora's box of content when we say we want to launch UGC. We have a tool, we have a system that is going to help us scale the editing and the production of that content. That's going to help make sure that if we do an interview with a patient and they say something a little off color, we have a system that's going to be able to catch that during the editing process. Instead of nuking the whole thing, what if we just edit that little part out of the video? No one's going to be the wiser. Everyone's safe. The story still communicates the same. So this is not all stuff that you have to figure out like in a bubble, right? Or using sticks and stones. We have now systems to help you scale your user-generated content and put those guardrails into place, including examples, right, to help show to an editor what you can and can't use. And this also extends to saved orders, right? Now, these are after you've like basically built a piece of content in the platform, you can log exactly how you got that edited, the direction that worked, the direction that didn't work, the feedback that was most critical can be saved as one stream of consciousness. Now, when you go to edit that piece of content again, you go and to do another patient testimonial or another piece of product education, you don't have to start from scratch. You have not only the finished video, but also the editors in our ecosystem have access to all of that previous feedback and direction. And you get to add a little bit more direction here too on, here's exactly what worked and what didn't and what you need to apply to the next one.
Yeah. Think of saved orders like if you're an Uber Eats fan, if I always order number one with extra pickles and no tomatoes, well, I don't want to have to tell the person I'm ordering from that every time. I just want to click the saved order because that's what I know I like. That's what I know will work. Saved orders are the same way. So once we get something nailed down, save it as a saved order, and now it's a one-click process to get that edit back. Daniel, I hope you're going to talk about the approval process too, because if we're living in the green, you still want to make sure that the brand is correctly represented. And so nothing gets out of this platform until we give it that thumbs up, you give it that thumbs up,
right?
Or you can have the power to ask for revisions. The approval process that's built into MarketScale gives you that additional layer, those guardrails that you need before that stuff gets shipped out.
See here, this content is marked completed here. This is a manual process. So you have to actually initiate marking content complete before it's noted as done, ready to go. So you've got more little widgets here that are going to help you put up those guardrails as needed. Again, let's say I'm watching this video back and I say, I don't really love this piece of B-roll. I don't think it's going to reflect really well on our brand. I think legal may have a problem with us linking our verbiage to that kind of visual. Well, I could come in here and say, please swap this visual out for X, Y, or Z to make sure we don't run into compliance risk. Okay, now that's going to log here. You can do all of this more confidently when, for example, you've set your claims matrix, you've sat down with legal, you've sat down with the compliance department, everyone's on the same page. Now you have tools that help you catch these little moments of potential risk before you even take it to legal, before they even have to say, no, send it back, right? Or even better, bring legal to the table. Say, hey guys, here's draft 1. Send them a link to the video and tell them to hop into the proofing room and say, just watch this and leave some notes on the timeline for things that you think need to change or that might prove some risk. We can then take it from there. How easy is that, right? Bring them into the process, embrace some of these workflows to help make your whole UGC experience more fruitful. And last but not least, you can replicate these responsibilities leveraging our task ecosystem too. So you can build out these playbooks that are like consistent task templates in our project management ecosystem. So imagine every single time you go to create a piece of, like med tech product education. Okay, that's going to have a very specific set of rules. More importantly, a specific set of responsibilities around review, compliance, and approval. Well, instead of all that living in here, in your head, why not make those tasks very clear? Save that as a template, and every single time you go to make that style of video, duplicate that template, and everyone's assigned what they need to be assigned to make sure that things get done the right way. Manage the whole compliance and review process here in the platform, right? So for example, right, you can build out something like this with very granular descriptions, prioritize it, when's it due, build out the subtasks. You can assign the subtasks and the whole project out to individuals in the platform. Boom. Okay. So these are all little bells and whistles. I don't mean to spend too much time here, showing off our own platform, but I just want you guys to know that as we're giving you these how-to tips for how to scale UGC in a highly regulated industry, this is not all stuff you have to go figure out offline or you got to go figure out on just the human element. You have tools that reinforce these best practices that we're telling you about. All these tools are going to help make everything we've talked about more scalable, really. It's in the name, MarketScale, right? Love it. Okay, so I want to talk shop a little bit on the green lane here. Also, Matt, love the comment. You can tell I'm from Missouri. I hope that's a good thing. MIZ, right? Go Tigers. So, green lane, okay? We've talked about all the stuff you need to do to make sure the red lane is just removed from the equation. This is stuff that we absolutely need to avoid. And the gray lane, which is all the stuff that needs the workflows and review processes. But what about the green lane? The stuff that you can ship out relatively smoothly that everyone's on the same page about. Well, one of the hacks here is you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. You're not inventing new claims. You don't have to launch UGC that has to start all your messaging from scratch. Rather, take stuff that's already approved and just change up the medium. So for example, if you already have approved literature, you have a testimonial that's been written out and put in a brochure. You have product descriptions. You have outcome claims already on your website. These could all drive video content, people-powered video content, putting that sales leader on camera, that patient, that physician partner, that researcher, that engineer, that CEO, right? They're just working off of the materials that have already gone through a month's worth of review, and everyone says, yeah, this represents our brand and product well. David, I know this is something that you preach a lot when you're talking to our healthcare customers.
Yep.
Any other tips and tricks you'd like to add here for our audience?
I mean, this is just low-hanging fruit, right? I mean, you guys spend so much time and money and getting, this written stuff approved, the collateral approved and through the process. Now let's just double down on it, right? And we know large language models are looking for authoritative content. We know that your community engages more often and more consistently with video and audio. So here's an opportunity to, green bucket that content. And it's usually fast tracked because it's already been through approval. And we can get it, as long as the new medium is approved, here we go. We're off and running. And it saves you time, right? Because now you're decentralizing and you're getting maybe that sales team, maybe that customer, maybe that partner of yours to pitch in and create with you and for you. I think this is something that a lot of people are executing on, but if you're not, it's a huge opportunity.
Shannon, have you been able to get UGC out the door by leveraging this kind of hack? Where instead of reinventing the wheel, you start with stuff that's already been approved, you just rework it for video and level up the engagement, make it more personal, more fun to watch. What are your thoughts? How have you deployed this?
Yeah, I think the key to this is creating consistency and eliminating variables, right? And I'll give you an example of this. In my world, LinkedIn has become a pretty big deal for our customer base. It's where all these surgeons are going to kind of brag about, their latest case in a lot of cases. What we've been able to do is kind of leverage that trend on social media, but create very, very specific templates for our users and our customers to actually use. And so they've received this really well. And what it looks like is, this is Dr. Johnson, I'm sending you a template for a social media post, along with some guidelines. I need you to keep all of these things exactly as they are, so I don't get in trouble. These things you can manipulate, you can make it your own in these ways, right? And here are the things that we can say, and here are the things we absolutely cannot say. And by doing that, number one, it's just good marketing, being consistent and repetitive and making sure you're saying the same thing and it's aimed at your core message. It's just good marketing. Number two, it allows your regulatory departments and legal just to kind of take a step back and say, okay, I understand we're lowering our risk by doing this. But templatizing, is that a word? It is
Hey,
now.
I like
Yeah.
it.
It's a good Tennessee, Mississippi word is what that is. Templatizing your social media for your customers has been a way that I've been actually pretty successful with this.
And it's easier on that surgeon because you're
Absolutely.
giving them very clear directions. They know exactly how you want them to execute, and it takes pressure off of them.
Yeah,
So,
they want this.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Good point.
Right. And look, to bring it back to the tool briefly, again, this is also something that you can leverage MarketScale Studio to help you execute, right? You can help templatize how you want people to respond when you are leveraging things like our request feature here. So the request feature lets you build a survey. With this survey, you can lay out very specific questions or instructions that you want someone to follow. So you don't need your surgeon to edit your content. You don't need your surgeon to conceive of, hey, you are slotting in for these 30 seconds in the context of this social media piece. Really, all you need from them is their contribution that is relevant, that helps you move the narrative, and that's also engaging for them. And you can give that kind of direction right here, right? You choose how you want them to respond. You can do multiple prompts and questions so you can get really granular. Read this script. Then answer this question. Then read this closing script. Done. They record each of those separately as their own clips. You get back what you need. They wipe their hands of it, and then, surprise, they have a cool little testimonial they can share around too. That was all done within the guardrails that you established, right? Leveraging tools at your disposal. It's exciting stuff. Again, we're not having to do this with sticks and stones anymore. We have more tools at our disposal. So I want to start to wrap things up with a 7-day pilot plan here, okay? Everyone that's watching, I challenge you to take action on this front. Get out there and sit down with your compliance team, sort out those guardrails, map green, gray, red for your content, for your org, map out approval processes, and let's see some new content out there that maybe would have been considered risky previously starting to churn, or at least starting to get produced to test the waters. So day 1 and 2, pick your lane. Are you looking to take some stuff out of red into gray? Are you looking to take some stuff out of gray into green? Are you looking to double down on stuff that's already built and you can just ship some green content? Like a brochure. Let's turn that brochure into a 90-second selfie video too, right? So choose at least 3 green formats. That's the low-hanging fruit. And then find the creators that are going to help you sell that narrative, move that message, and bring them to the table as well. Day 2 and 3, let's build that creator kit. This is also going to include sitting down with your compliance team and talking shop on workflows, talking shop on what is or isn't allowed, and getting on that same page. Massage that relationship. You don't build a relationship in a day, but you can definitely get started with improving those relationships. Then day 3 through 5, get that content created, right? If you started at the beginning of the week, by the end of the week, you should have some clips in hand, experimenting with this new approach to content. Maybe 20 minutes per creator if you want to sit them down for an interview, but that's even a lot. Like, you could lessen that number, send someone a survey link, and have them respond over 90 seconds for a quick clip to experiment. So don't take those minutes there as gospel per se. You can dabble with shorter form content to test the waters. And last but not least, for the last several days, as you round out a full week, get your stuff edited, reviewed with your new methodology, and then published. And remember, leverage all the tools at your disposal to make that process smooth. Templatize your edit, templatize the feedback process, templatize the responsibilities. Bring your legal team into MarketScale Studio and have them leave the commentary on things that need to be removed or added in the proofing room for that video project. All of that's going to make everyone's life smoother, and it's going to bring everyone to the content table for the sake of people-powered content, the real thing that we're using as our mission here today. So I want to end with this. Shannon, if you have any advice here for our audience around where to start. I know we've given a lot of advice. I know we've given people a lot of ways to rethink their approach towards red tape content in their highly regulated industry. For the marketers out there, regardless of if they're in healthcare or not, but they're facing these challenges, what is your advice on where they should start to tackle this challenge and start to affect change that lets them move UGC out there for the benefit of the entire team?
Yeah, I would. I'll give you kind of two answers here.
Perfect. Two
One,
better than one.
work on the soft skills. You know, how to influence people, and was it how to influence and build friendships? I can't. Dale Carnegie book. Everybody knows.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Dale Carnegie. Build those relationships. Use your soft skills. You know, this is not something you can do overnight, and it's not something you can just put your head down and run through walls. You're going to have to really, pull people in and get alignment from an organization in order to get an efficient process in place like this. Number two is be systematic about your approach. When I say, do a process map, do a formal process map with somebody who knows what the heck they're doing, not me, but somebody who knows what they're doing on a process map. Because I will tell you, in my experience, when you see this thing laid out on, especially if it's a real redundant and layered system like I described, when you see it laid out on a whiteboard, light bulbs go off and they go, oh crap, this is why it takes 2 months for this stuff to happen, right? And so those are the two things that I would start with. Work on those soft skills. Number two, really take a systematic approach to it.
And David, how about for you? Again, you work with a ton of customers in healthcare every day. You help guide them to UGC success and bring them on this UGC train. What advice would you give to marketers out there who are facing all this red tape on where they should get started, or an easy win they can tackle to start to change the tune and narrative around UGC with all that red tape?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, this conversation is because we understand, like, it probably feels like you're playing an unfair game sometimes. There are companies out there that don't have the red tape you have. Their green bucket is much bigger for whatever reason. And you might find yourself in a situation where it doesn't feel that way. Or you're competing against companies that are much larger, have bigger teams, bigger budgets. And with that comes easier access to certain things that helps them get content out. We know that sometimes it feels like an unfair game. The challenge, though, is still the challenge. And we have to deliver, and we have to find a way to win. And, hopefully conversations like this, and with expertise and experience from guys like Shannon and others, you start to put a process in place, a plan in place that allows you to execute on what you can execute on. And then with the right tools and the right support and the right coaching and the right services, you can find your niche and you can win. And, starting with the steps that we shared today, we think you can, because we've seen companies just like you guys find a way to do it. And we're here to help. Others are here to help too. And even though it feels that way sometimes, there is a way to find success.
I love it. Radical optimism, man. But hey, you know what helps make you optimistic is having a good plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And to close it out, in summary, these are the 3 truths of pushing out UGC in a highly regulated environment. Do these steps and you will start to see a difference, not only in your internal dynamics, but in the quality of your content, and in finally seeing people-powered content on your channels. 1 is build the relationship first. As Shannon said, compliance is a partner. They are not your enemy. They are not eager to shut down your content. They're just doing their job. So do your jobs together. Step 2, define your lanes. What can you ship in the green lane? What needs processes? What is untouchable? Let that dictate your speed, your political capital internally, and your energy and your spend. And last but not least, build the templates, right? For the folks that want organic content, templates may feel like they're going to stifle that, but I promise you, if you build this the right way, they only cut out the risk and leave a nice open lane for people to still lead from the front with their personalities. And for those of you that still like your hands on the wheel, you want the control, well, this is not the Waymo approach. You still get your hands on the wheel. You're just getting a little, I don't know, tier 1 autonomous driving on the roadways. They let you know when someone's in your blind spot. That's what we're doing here with our templates. We got the blind spot sensors on. All right, folks, that does it for our workshop today. You now have the action items and the how-to tips you need to launch user-generated content in highly regulated industries at scale. And surprise, it involves both people, relationships, but also tools and proper workflows. So thank you again to our 2 guests here today for laying it all out for us, giving us that boots on the ground experience. Shannon, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today, man. If folks want to learn more from you, they want to tap into your expertise, maybe put you to work, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, especially these days. You'll see a post or 2 come out of me at least once or twice a day. So find me there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Always looking to help organizations build a better marketing program, build better marketing processes. So reach out, LinkedIn. That's where you can find me.
Nice. And David, same to you. Folks want to get in touch with you. They want to pick your brain, maybe learn how you can help them launch strategies like these to finally get UGC out the door. How can they get in touch?
Yeah, LinkedIn's always a good spot. First out last at MarketScale.com. So David.Kemp at MarketScale.com. And Highway to Health. All right, my podcast where we bring on experts from around the healthcare industry talking about improved access, experience, and outcomes for our patient population. If you want to join, or if you have an expert that you want to tap into and bring to Highway to Health, let me know.
Boom. Shannon, David, it's been a pleasure today, guys. And I'm looking forward to bringing you back on for a fresh one. Y'all take it easy, all right?
Thanks, guys.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, guys. And thank you to our audience. I appreciate all you guys chiming in. It's always a pleasure getting to share these insights with our wider UGC community. Whether you are a creator out there listening along, whether you are a marketer that's looking to launch new strategies, or maybe a prospect, maybe you're not part of the community. You're just dipping your toes in the water and seeing what this is all about. We're happy to have you here, and you can find more great education from the MarketScale community on our website, MarketScale.com. Don't miss out on future episodes of UGC Workshop Live because they're just going to get more hype. I've got lots of good stuff coming, folks. We're going to be doing interactive quizzes and polls here soon. We're going to have some live music playing. I'm setting up my tech for that, so just wait for DJ Lit to step here out on the stage. And we're also going to be experimenting with some other guests and locations to run our episodes. We're going to bring on some folks that are out of the box, maybe off the traditional path of B2B marketing guests. We're going to mix things up a little bit, but still give us some practical how-to tips. So thanks for being along for the ride. Lots more to come. But till then, folks, I'm Daniel Litwin, the voice of B2B. We'll catch you on the next episode of UGC Workshop Live. Stay safe. Stay swaggy out there, folks. And we'll see you soon. Peace.